Hello, my name is Michael Green, and I welcome you to the 22nd episode of my podcast Historians in Conversation, which is hosted by the University of Lodz in Poland. My guest today is Professor Arvydas Pacevičius from Vilnius University in Lithuania, and I'm going to talk to Arvydas not only about his motivation to study history and the way that he made his academic career, but also about the historical context of his life. He was studying at the university and doing his PhD at the time when the Soviet Union collapsed and independent Lithuania was created. And it makes even more interesting how one can build up an academic career during times of change. So I welcome you to my podcast, and I hope that you will enjoy our conversation. So let me welcome Arvydas to my podcast. Hello, Arvydas, and welcome to my podcast. I'm glad to have you here.
Hello, Michael.
It's my pleasure to have you here because you're the first person that I'm speaking to from Lithuania. And I think our conversation will give an interesting perspective on how the things worked around history in the, later Soviet times, but also nowadays independent Lithuania. So once again, welcome. And traditionally, I start my podcast by asking about his or her family. And my question is, where do you come from?
I come to Vilnius from Molėtai. Molėtai, it's a small city in northwest of Lithuania, but not exactly from Molėtai, but from Suginčiai. In Polish, it's Suginti. It's famous because mother of Józef Pilsudski was from this place, Suginčiai. It's just about 14 kilometers from Molėtai. And it's interesting history, how the relicts of, it was grave in Suginčiai, and after in interwar period, remains were transferred from Suginčiai to Vilnius. As you know, Józef Pilsudski, last will of Józef Pilsudski was that mother will be near his son. So my roots not in Vilnius, but near Vilnius, in interwar period, Suginčiai was Lithuanian part of Lithuania, this capital of Kaunas.
And can you tell a little bit about your family, your parents? What did they do? Did they have siblings?
My parents were teachers in secondary school. Mother was teacher of Lithuanian language, and father was teacher of history and Russian and other languages. I come to Vilnius after my service in Soviet Army in 1981. Yes, I became student of Vilnius University in Faculty of History.
We will get there in a moment, but before that, I wanted to pause a little bit on your childhood, because childhood is a very important period in one's life. And you mentioned that both of your parents were teachers, so it means that you're coming from an educated family and a family that was using, or at least teaching, in various languages. So you mentioned that your mother was teacher of Lithuanian, but your father was teacher of Russian. Therefore, you got, I assume, acquaintance of languages not only at school, but also to some extent at home. And of course, we know that languages are extremely important for historical work. But even before that, I wonder, in your family, was there some sort of tradition of reading, or very encouraged to read as a child, or very actually let be and do whatever you liked yourself? And if so, then what were your hobbies as a child?
Oh, childhood in Soviet times, it's really, how to say, very strange feeling when I think about. But me and my brothers, I have two brothers, I think that we were happy because childhood it's unique, yes, period in life of everyone, every man or woman. So when I think about this time, there were very good, I think, atmosphere, contacts with relatives, with my grandfather, grandmother. They lived near Suginčiai, just about 3 kilometers, and we traveled, yes, not every day, but very often, yes, to our grandfather and grandmother and my relatives, just about my old years, cousins and so on, we gathered in this place. And now it's, when I think about it, it's really, really magic, yes, magic place. Nowadays, it's not exist, but it was very, very nice. After school, no, secondary school in Soviet times, it was discipline. I remember like in army, yes, in morning, yes, and we need, yes, to stay in line before classes. It was strange and different from our times. What else? My village, my place where I was born, it's near lake, Želvų ežeras. Nowadays, and in Soviet times, there was built astronomical observatory, very interesting and very good place until our days. And I remember first visit, yes, to astronomical observatorium. It's just about 2 kilometers from our village. It was another, yes, really interesting thing. Yes, first time we looked into sky through telescope and so on. My brother, he studied nature sciences in Vilnius University. He was, and until now, he is really enthusiastic with different insects. Yes, insects. He was really a hunter of different very rare, yes, exemplars of insects. And my younger brother, we tried to help to him. Yes, it's also very interesting because hunting of insects, this job at night through lights, so it's also magic. Such impression from my childhood.
So, did you feel any idea, well, did you have any feeling about interest in history? Was it something that you liked already as a child, or at that point it was not something that was burning in you? Because you mentioned a lot of things, but you didn't mention anything related to, in particular, to reading or to books or to going to historical places, because around Vilnius there are quite, well, there's the Trakai Castle, of course, and some other historical places. Was it something that interested you already in your childhood?
I mentioned in the beginning that there are some interesting, yes, artifacts, as I mentioned, Bilevičiūtė, Pilsudskienė, but if you talk about history, I didn't mention about, I think that not consciousness, because I wasn't very interested in history at school. First of all, I was interested more maybe in literature, in Lithuanian literature, or how in Lithuania we have specific word, Lituanistika. Lituanistics, like Polonistika, it's not only history, but also literature, also history, but close connected to Lithuanian things, language, linguistics, because my mother was a teacher of Lithuanian language. But I think that mother, she was really good educator, yes, pedagogue. And I remember at school, one of task was to gather different stories, histories from all people about interesting events, what happened, I don't know, 50 or more years ago, and it was very interesting job. And we traveled, we asked, nowadays we call it life history, I think, yes, oral history. We gathered different histories about old times, and after we prepared written text, yes, written text with this documentation, when, who was translator of this history. So I think that it made sense. And after when I decided to study history, I think that it was very good basics for my exams, because it was necessary to write, yes, written job. And I think that exercises at school with historical stories, oral histories, it was very interesting. And after, I think that maybe in 11th or 12th class, oh, excuse me, it was 11th only, 11 classes.
Even 10, I think. At the time, it was still 10.
In Lithuania, it was 11 classes in Soviet times.
Yeah, because I know that the Soviet educational reform was in 1988, at least.
After, yes, maybe, but in my times,
Ukraine.
it was 11th, yes.
Okay.
So maybe in the last class, I started, yes, interesting just a little bit about historical things, but it was difficult, yes, to make exams, and I don't pass it, and I went to Soviet Army for 2 years, and only after Soviet Army I passed exam to historical faculty, because there was very big, great big competition.
Maybe just very briefly, I think that our listeners might be interested in hearing 2 words about your military service. How did it look?
Oh, just 3 or 4 days ago, there was conference about handwritten letters. My paper was about travel writing and letters, and I also told to audiences about my collection, because I have my letters from Soviet Army. It's I don't know, just about maybe 60 or 70 items to my parents, to my brothers. And some of them I transferred. Yes, I have in computer, yes. And now when I read it, it's very interesting, because after 40, 50 years, 45 years, I can see it like researcher, yes. I mean, what language was, how it changed, why Russian influences, and different things. Very interesting. Via was army. First of all, I was in near Tula in Russia. It was like sergeant school. After we were transferred, because it was 1979. Yes, it was beginning of the war in Afghanistan. and it was possibility, and some people, some friends from this school traveled, they transferred to Afghanistan, and my, how to say, happiness was that I was sent to Kazakhstan, to Baikonur,
Oh, wow.
to Baikonur, yes, and
That's where the space ships were launched, or actually
yes,
are
yes,
still
yes,
launched.
yes, but it was, how to say, I, my service was in Russian, it is uh, uh, specific items like building, yes, building building places, and our task was, yes, to supply big buildings for starships.
Mhm.
In Baikonur, it was like Buran in 1979, 1980. Starts, yes, specific program, Soviet program for building something similar to United States. And our task was to supply big, great buildings uh, for this starships with glass. Yes, my task was to make glass. Yes, to make glass for windows and so on. So, it was hard work because sometimes happened something really not so good things because glass, yes, it is dangerous, you know. Okay, but I survived, yes, in these difficult conditions.
And then you got into well, you finished the army and then you applied, well, passed the exams to get into history. And then the question is, why history? Because once again, it didn't seem like the main interest and the main passion. So why history? How did you make that choice? Did you have any other choices that you could have applied?
Yes, I mentioned that I have another choice, yes, to pass to pedagogical institute, to lietuvių kalba, Lithuanian language, Lituanistics, as I said, but because I tried first time before Soviet Army, I thought that I need to try just one time. It was like, you know, a specific condition or task for myself that I need, yes, pass, and I passed it to historical faculty because Vilnius University Faculty of History, it was really great big competition. I think that there was just about 4 or 5 people into one place, yes, competition. So I passed it because, you know, after Soviet Army, there was just a little bit better conditions, yes.
Mhm.
I think that one or how many points, yes, I achieved after Soviet Army, and I passed. But if you ask about my studies, I wasn't good student, yes, until just about uh, end of third year, I wasn't good student. But after, okay, maybe you will ask about.
Well, first I will ask you about the study themselves. Did you study, I mean, or you probably did, of course, the history of Marxism, Leninism, and how did you find it, or as a student, especially as a Lithuanian student, and I suppose, judging by your mother's background at least, that perhaps some non-conformistic ideas might have been circulating in the family. How was it?
Oh, if you talk about non-conformistic ideas, or maybe some quiet resistance.
Or at least doubts.
You know, it's maybe in second or third year in my studies, I met some people who studied, who read something like prohibited texts, because it was possible, yes, to achieve, to read at go something, but it wasn't, how to say, very spread thing. And when I returned to my school, yes, to Suginčiai, to 1979, it's really, it was, you know, when I remember time, yes, childhood, okay, but when we talk about situation in Soviet time, yes, communist regime, and so on, when I think about it, it was really, really deep, specific, what I need in English, something like gray colors without high resolution. And after in my studies, yes, I understood something, yes, because you know, in at school there was no possibility, I think. Yes, maybe I read something. For example, I read some authors, some poets. For example, Tomas Venclova, famous writer and poet in Lithuania. He was in exile after 1974, and books of Tomas Venclova were excluded from libraries. Yes, and I remember that I brought some books at home. It was 1976 or 7, and I wrote. Yes, it was very interesting. But returning to Vilnius University, yes, there was prohibited text. What text? In Russian language, first of all, because dissident movement, yes, was very strong. And as you know, yes, in Russia, in Leningrad and Moscow, and texts, I think, first of all, traveled from capital of Russia, but also in Lithuania, we also read Lietuvos Katalikų bažnyčios kroniką. It's Chronicle of Lithuanian Catholic Church. It is also very important, and we achieved it, and we read it. I think I was in third or fourth year of studies, but really it wasn't like in our times that we have specific term as active and passive resistance. It wasn't active, and it was maybe in some aspects passive resistance, but it was first of all in our minds, because returning to the question, in the historical faculty in our times, first task of the historical faculty was to build up, to make good ideological workers in all levels, from secondary school to teachers at universities, teachers of, as you said, Marxism, Leninism. Yes, it was very popular in our times. It was competition for, I don't know, 5 or 6 places in this specialty, Marxism, Leninism, and then no people who were so active in this place, and nowadays they are very active, like patriots, yes, in Lithuania. So, but
Changing colors.
yes, changing colors.
It's not only in Lithuania, it's also in, I know about some very prominent communists in Ukraine who switched their colors and became nowadays very, you could even say, nationalistic in their views. And if we come back to your own feelings and your own studies, so just to remind our listeners that in the Soviet times, the standard curriculum was 5 years, and then you would finish your studies with something that would be equivalent to nowadays master's degree. And obviously you continued beyond. And the question is why? Why did you decide to stay in academia?
It was, yes, it happened suddenly. My specialty was guide, yes, guide, like, yes, travel guide. So after my studies, I spent, I think, 2 years in specific institution, like for administration of travels in Soviet space, you know, in Soviet Union in Lithuania. But I made, I think it was interesting for me. I made interesting for me my graduate work, as you say, it master, or in our times it was diploma, a work about monastic libraries. It was in 1986. It was Soviet times, but my promoter, my professor, Mečislovas Jučas, famous historian in Lithuania, he was authority, yes, and in Soviet times it was possible. I think that because there was anniversary of Catholic Church, and some titles, some thematics was possible to make. Yes, of course, in the beginning it was necessary, yes, to say some words about Soviet and Marxist, Leninist, yes, ideology and so on, to make critics of bourgeois historiography. But after, yes, it was possible, yes, to search something in archives, and I made first attempts, yes, to really study historical sources, in Polish, in Russian language, after in Latin, with the help of our and when I achieved good mark, it was 5 in Soviet times, I started to think about continuation of scientific work. And in my job, in my administrative job in travel system administration, I thought about scientific work. And one time I met my professor, Mečislovas Jučas, in coffee in Vilnius, in Old Town. We talk and he said, oh, listen, we have place in Vilnius University in the Faculty of History. Maybe you want to join. It was place for assistant, I think, position. And I started, yes, step by step. I started. I made deeper, deeper, yes, research on book culture, libraries. First of all, monastic Catholic libraries, after book culture. And when new faculty, yes, of communication was established, it happened in 1991, 1 year after our independence. I moved to new faculty because my research interests were close connected with book history, yes, libraries, information and communication, and I started my job like teacher and scientific worker in new faculty of communication.
And how was it to move to a new faculty? Because faculty of communication probably has a rather different profile and also different methodology and different expectations. I experienced quite a change when I moved from my general history part that I was in during my master's, and I went to a different university to do my PhD, and I ended up at the Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies. Even though I was at the Department of Cultural History of Christianity, it was still quite a change in approach and in everything, and I had to learn really a lot. How was it for you?
It wasn't so hard because it was new, yes, really new. First time in the history of Vilnius University was established faculty of such kind, because you remember in 1990 starts computer science and so on. It was a very good occasion. Secondly, faculty was built on the basis of old studies of librarianship, journalism. So first of all, librarianship and, for example, book history was very popular in Soviet times in Lithuania. And on this basis, yes, faculty and all scientists and I started to build something new, I think, yes. Mix like, yes, historical sciences, book history, yes, publishing history and so on. It was very, very, how to say, in good level and different new disciplines, informology, communication sciences developed to the different directions. And nowadays we have, I think, one of more popular faculty in university, if we talk about studies, bachelor, first of all, studies, for example, in very popular program, kūrybos komunikacija, it's communication of creativity, yes. We have just about 120 students in first course in this program. So, and another programs are very popular, and I teach not only historical things. For example, now I teach creative communicators, new discipline, creative writing. Yes, and I included something from Egodocuments. Yes, and young students very interested about it. They made for me written works with different inclusions, because in my lectures I explained what it is book marginalia, what it is manucula, what it is book graffiti, and they also draw for me something interesting in written works, because young students, young people, they don't understand what we are talking about. But after, when I explain, when other teachers explain, they accept everything. They are, how to say, a new generation, but they accept and they want to know more. I just a few days ago listened something about studies in old times and new times nowadays. I think that there are great differences, but the thing we have, young people need to study. They really need new information, new knowledge, and it is good that they listen, they want to read, they want to study something in such a time when they are young, yes, because 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, it's really, really a good time for study, yes, for new things, for knowledge. And when I remember myself, when I was student in Soviet times, it was really not so interesting, yes, to study, because we talk about, yes, atmosphere, about gray colors, about indoctrination, and it was a really, really happiness and really success that I was involved into interesting topic, interesting thematics, because it was only occasion. I think that if not, maybe I will continue like administrator, like, I don't know, something connected with travel. But nowadays, yes, travel writing, it is also very interesting topic nowadays.
Which you have been working a lot on. So in fact, you still continued that line of research, but maybe let's get for a moment to the doctoral study itself. How was the relationship between the supervisor and the doctoral student at this time? I understand that you started doing doctoral studies just before the collapse of Soviet Union and just before Lithuania gained independence, or was it already after?
I mentioned that our faculty was established in 1991.
So it was already
And
after
And
independence.
yes, and doctoral studies also starts just about that time. But it was really hard times. I mean, in economic sense, in finance, I mean, salaries for teachers in university. And I started also to work in parallel,
Mm-hmm.
job because I was married, yes, child. So I didn't try to study in doctoral studies because I have job and I made my doctoral dissertation in the specific term, yes, without doctoral studies, but I made myself, and after I presented my final job, and in 2001, yes, I ended it, and it was procedure, yes, like in official, yes.
So it took you 10 years to finish.
Yes, yes. Without studies, yes. It was necessary, yes, to pass exams, yes, okay. But it was, I don't know, do you have in Poland something? It's externals.
External PhD.
Yes, external PhD, yes. I
I'm
made
not sure if
external PhD.
that's the case here, but in the Netherlands where I did my PhD, we had a few of
Mhm.
external PhDs who successfully
Mhm.
defended, but I don't know cases of those who actually stayed in the academia afterwards. And
Mhm.
perhaps that would be my last question. How did you stay? Because it's one thing to do a doctoral study, but it's a completely different thing to be able to remain in the academia after you're done, especially when you're doing it as external PhD.
Yes, as I said, I was teacher and also I had parallel job
Mm-hmm.
and I permanently had lectures, yes, until my external PhD. So it was not so hard, yes, after to make a career because my Professor Domas Kaunas, he was my promoter. He was good in how to say in promoting students. No, I wasn't doctoral student, but I was how to say I made PhD.
Yeah.
Yes, under supervision of professor, and after he made attempts, yes, to promote me. I achieved more lectures. After I achieved docent or assistant professor,
Mhm.
it depends also not only from researcher or teacher, but also from someone who stand up or near, yes, or near researcher.
Yeah. Someone who literally promotes you.
Promote.
Yeah. I wanted to thank you for our very interesting conversation. At least I learned really a lot, and I'm sure that our listeners will have learned a lot from our conversation too. So thank you very much, Arvydas, and I wish you all the best.
Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you.